from Hollywood and the four corners of the world. You asked for it. Starring Rich Little. Here's the star of You Asked For It, Rich Little.
Thank you, and welcome to the only show on television that takes you around the world in 30 minutes just because you asked for it. Well, tonight, $500 million of recovered treasure, and the finders can't claim it. A young escape artist takes on the great Houdini, the magic stick that can save your life or feed your children and cost less than a penny, and much more. First, what could be more difficult to train than a tiny, very nervous wild canary? Well, it hardly seems possible, yet the tradition of canary performers in Mexico is an ancient and honored one. Tony Thomas tells us the tale because Gary Lerman of Reseda, California, you asked for it.
Rich, if you go into a public park in Mexico, you may be lucky enough to see something you'll see nowhere else. Trained canaries. These flighty birds, who are naturally afraid of humans, go into a panic when people approach. But Eloy Gomez and his son Jorge still carry on the dying tradition of working with canaries. The bird is so highly strung that most trainers won't bother with it. However, the secrets of teaching tricks to canaries have been passed down from father to son in the Gomez family. First, the trainer develops a rapport with the bird. This may take many months. The training is a system of reward and punishment. The canary learns that if he wants to eat, he had better perform. It takes time, patience, and more perseverance than most people have, but eventually the trainer has the bird literally eating out of his hand. And now, exclusively for You Asked For It, Don Eloy and Jorge will put these canaries through their paces. Will the bird make a phone call? Well, maybe not.
Puedes pasarte a retirar para que salga Toño. A ver, Toño. Venga usted por acá, tú que quieres salir a trabajar inmediatamente.
But will it answer a call for help from a motorist in distress? Will it tow a disabled car? Let's see. Now that's real service.
Qué bien, pajarito, muy bien. Ahora sí pásate a retirar para que salga tu compañero a trabajar. Ahora va a salir Paco. Paco les va a entregar una carta, Les va a entregar una cartita.
The star of the show is Paco. After being so showered with attention, he's not interested in a bird bath. But proper dress is important, and this doll needs a sombrero.
Pero ahora también, pajarito, vamos aquí a bañar al niño. Como eres un pajarito educado y lo sabes hacer, espérame tantito. Venga usted por acá, Paco. Agarra este niño.
And this baby does need a bath. To prove he's no bird brain, Paco selects exactly the right packet from an assortment.
Pajarito, exactamente. Vamos a entregárselo aquí a la señorita.
For this, Paco needs a little help, but you can see the proof, Gary Lerman, because you asked for it.
This is Alfred Hitchcock. In my movie, The Birds, I plan to use canaries rather than seagulls. But the canaries were too smart. They organized a union, hired an agent, and refused to work for chicken feed. Coming up next, a young escape artist takes on Houdini, right after this next terrifying moment in television history.
And now back to Rich Little.
Houdini's famous escape trick underwater is just one of the accomplishments of high school student Mark Mazzarella. He is about to climb into a water tank bound in a straitjacket and chained at the ankles. And he does this to see if he can survive. And to tell us more about this remarkable young man, here is Jack Smith with the story. Lisa Stephen of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, you asked for it.
Mark Mazzarella looks like the average kid next door who spends his time practicing sleight of hand tricks to impress his friends. But Mark is far from average. Now just look what he does to this $20 bill. No matter how you try, you won't be able to see how he does it. Now, escape stunts are part of any magician's bag of tricks. As you can see, chains around the wrists are child's play for this young man. But here in the garage of his parents' home in Southington, Connecticut, Mark is going to do something that no other magician can do. Especially for You Asked For It, Mark, assisted by his brother Tom, will attempt to escape from a container filled with 50 gallons of water while strapped in a straitjacket and chained at the ankles. Now, as you can see, it takes a lot of preparation, but that's something he's used to, especially with his older brother around.
When I was about 10 years old, I began getting fascinated into Houdini and escapes. And I would have my brothers take lengths of rope, about 100 feet of rope, and they would tie me up in every kind of position you could imagine. No matter how much they tied me up or how difficult it was, I was always able to escape. And I decided then that I could become another Houdini.
But even Houdini never tried this one. In fact, this trick with the water tank, the straitjacket, and the chains combines 3 separate tricks for which Houdini was famous. It's a tight squeeze, physically demanding, but something Mark is confident he can do.
I usually can hold my breath 3 minutes, but I'm only given 2.5 minutes for safety reasons. My whole control over the escape and the problems of it is through the power of my mind and the relaxation of my body.
And now the time has come. The lid goes on and is secured by 4 padlocks. Brother Tom keeps watch. If something goes wrong, he'll have to rush in and save his brother from drowning. Mark has already begun his struggle. And when you watch him get out of the straitjacket, think of that tiny space and the fact that he happens to be 6 feet 1 inch tall. There, he's out of the straitjacket. Next, the chains. And now, no time to lose. Well, we've been privileged to see enough of Mark's secrets. The rest of the escape is hidden from our eyes. With Tom keeping his eye on that watch, the 2.5 minutes are almost up. Mark Mazzarella, because you asked for it.
Maybe Mark Mazzarella could give me a few lessons. I mean, there's a few things I'd like to escape from, like lawyers, critics, the tax man, Jack Smith. No, I'm only kidding. I love lawyers. And now here's Jack Smith with the story of an amazing life-saving invention. My friend, Jack Smith. I hope you
This box holds a tiny object that costs less than a penny. And yet there are times when this item can literally mean the difference between life and death. Hardly a day passes that this invention does not contribute directly to our comfort, pleasure, or convenience. And though tiny, it carries with it the power that has made human life possible for 1,000,000 years. Life as we know it would not be possible without this power. What is it? A common match. From our show of 1956, here's its story, the birth of a match.
First, wood. Select straight-grained Washington and Idaho white pine for the matchsticks. Now, these boards have been dried for from 2 to 4.5 years. Now they're ready, moved on a forklift to the planer. Here, they're smoothed down before going to the cutter. Now, in short lengths, they go onto this gang saw. The width of the cut determines the length of the match, as you'll see. Now to the grader, a real expert. He pushes off the rejects. The good blocks go upstairs for 6 months more drying. When that's over, they come down the hoppers for more grading. Hatchets flick away the least knot or flaw, and the good ones go onto the belt. Now to another important operation, the chemical room, for the mixture that goes on the head of the match. Here, the explosive element of the match is poured in, but in the wet mixture, it won't burn. For safety, the entire match will remain damp all down the production line. One danger is in letting the production line stop long enough for the matches to dry, so spare parts are immediately available for any repair. The excess is carefully wiped away for safety. There are 2 basic chemical mixtures, one for the head and one for the tip of the match. The final check of the wood blocks, making sure nothing will jam the intricate machinery, and the good blocks are fed in. Cutting knives split the blocks into hundreds of tiny sticks, then jams them into holes in those match plates. 576 matchsticks in each plate. A fan sucks the splinters away and the plates move on. Now on they go to the chemical roller. Through the grooved wheel, the matchsticks come out with a head, but still no tip. They move along a belt for partial drying, then the second dip, the explosive on the tip, and the match is completed. More drying now, big fans inside, along a belt that's over a city block long. These will be the slides that go on the outside of the boxes, sliced lengthwise first, and then chopped the other way, right onto the machine that folds and glues them. A stripe of abrasive where you strike the match goes on the outside. Now the inside, stamped and glued. The device holds them in position till the glue dries. Look at this, the slides are blown off the conveyor belt into the hoppers, and they're moved away. Poured into bins. On the floor below, the inner boxes drop to a rack slide and between those tracks, somehow in the right direction, and they're fed onto the main conveyor line. The matches are knocked out of the plates and fall into the boxes. A vibrator shakes the boxes and the matches settle down into place. Here the slide covers are automatically fed into the line and they move along. And finally, the 2 box lines come together. That wheel halfway closes them. Then to another wheel that shuts them tight. The boxes drop off the line onto a belt that takes them overhead, where they're knocked off the line onto another slide rack, slotted into their proper position. Brushes along the sides of the track hold the paper ends down till the glue dries. Only one job done by hand, and it's this. And your matches are ready for delivery. You asked for it.
Well, Jack, that strikes me as a very hot story.
Yes, it was heartwarming.
It really lit up the old show.
Come on, Rich, this could go on, but there's only one adjective that you can't use to describe this story.
What's that?
Matchless.
It's true. If I said that, they'd fire me.
You know, you burned me up.
Coming up next, How would you like to find $500 million worth of sunken treasure and not be able to claim it?
And now back to Rich Little.
Sunken treasure. The lure of it has driven adventurers to waste their fortunes and risk their lives. The oceans are still littered with the wrecks of the great ships that once carried treasures back to the gold-hungry capitals of Europe. Yet how much of it is ever recovered? Well, how about the story of Mel Fisher of Key West, Florida, who has found the treasures of his dreams only to have several governments tell him he can't take it to the bank. Jack Smith tells us the story because E.C. Hutton of Fort Pierce, Florida, you asked for it.
Mel Fisher and his wife Dio own a company called Treasure Salvers Incorporated. Their job is to find sunken treasure, and they've been incredibly successful. During the past 20 years, they've found thousands of wrecks, 150 of them gold-laden Spanish galleons. The Fishers are no strangers to the seas. They opened the world's first underwater dive shop in Redondo Beach, California, back in 1948. They kept reading about the fortunes still resting beneath the waves, just waiting for enterprising divers to claim. So they devised a scientific method of locating the riches. With money from investors who shared their underwater vision, they began hunting for Spanish wrecks with enough cash for 1 year's search. Before their funds ran dry, they hit upon a ship that yielded a few $1 million of very wet but very solid gold. They haven't looked back since, and their company now has 9 boats and 70 full-time treasure seekers.
I really think we're hot onto the trail. The anchors we found were right out here.
Their method is scientific and logical. Mel studies ancient Spanish archives to learn what ships were lost and what sea routes they were sailing. The archives also contain the cargo lists of the sunken galleons. The most common way to detect a possible treasure is with a floating device called a fish, which is dragged behind the boat while special equipment registers every minute change in the ocean floor's composition. When evidence piles up to suggest a find, Mel goes underwater to get a closer look. He uses a special device called an Aquapulse fertile coil, invented by Eric Foster of Limerick, Ireland. Today, Eric has modified his Aquapulse, and Mel will test it. The new design should let the operator tell gold and silver from other metals buried in the sand. Mel and Dio are ready to go exploring. Even with all their scientific help, only one dive in hundreds ever produces any gold. But that one find can sometimes be worth a fortune. These films were taken over the years as various ships were found.
What'd you find, Mel? Anything interesting?
Got a real good reading. The detector's working fine. Maybe tomorrow's the day, huh?
Right, yeah.
Here you go.
Even though Mel and Dio have found over $500 million worth of treasure, the ironic part is that they don't officially own it. Both the United States and 18 state governments have claimed the Fishers' finds as state property. After a 10-year court battle, Mel has finally beaten the federal government claim, and he expects that he'll win his case against the individual states. Mel and Dio, you deserve every penny of your gold because you asked for it.
Say, in case you have any idea of going after sunken treasure yourself, you better take a look at the odds. The Fishers are currently salvaging 2 ships in the Florida Gulf. They searched for 10 years to find them and painstakingly surveyed over 120 miles of open seas. There are easier ways to make a living, but Well, you've got to admire the Fishers. They don't just ask for it, they go for it.
Rich will be right back with more of You Ask For It. And now, back to Rich Little.
That's our show for tonight. See you next time on You Ask For It. Good night, everybody.
This is John Harlan speaking. You Ask For It is a Sandy Frank production.